Hello everyone. So I was watching a video on Scary Stuff's channel about real serial killer encounters, and I thought I would share a personal story about my own encounter with a serial killer. I promise you everything in this story is completely true. It might not be as exciting as some of the stories on Scary Stuff's video, but it's definitely something that freaks me out when I think about it. I grew up in a small town in North Wales called Connors Quay. It's in a county called Flintshire, which has an inordinate amount of weird ghost stories and urban legends attached to it. I think growing up listening to these stories is what made me so interested in the paranormal today. There wasn't much entertainment in Connors Quay itself. If you wanted to go to the cinema, the closest place was the Odeon in the nearby city of Chester. However, there was another cinema which was a lot cheaper in a town called Baggilt. This was Focus Cinema, an independently run business in a converted chapel building. They never showed any new films, but they would show a lot of kids' movies that had already been out a few years. My guess is that the owner got these movies for cheap, and this resulted in extremely cheap ticket prices. My dad would take me and my brother there quite often. We would see some shitty kids' movie, probably something starring Hulk Hogan or the Muppets. It was a cheap family day out. I can't remember exactly how old we were. The cinema was open between 1992 and 1995, so I would have been between 9 and 12 years old. The cinema was almost always empty when we went. I can't remember ever seeing any other customers there. They got so few customers that the main part of the cinema was always closed off. We would sit in a small viewing gallery that was above the main seats, on a small balcony in front of the projection room. The cinema seemed to be run mostly by one guy who worked on the front counter selling tickets and sweets, but also presumably ran the projector when the film was playing. Quite often, the owner of the business was there too. His name was Peter Moore, and he ran 2 cinemas in the local area. He spent most of his time driving his van between the 2 businesses. He was a friendly guy, and quite often if he was there, him and my dad would have a chat in the foyer before the film started. After a few years, the cinema closed suddenly, and we didn't know why, until one day we turned on the local news and Peter Moore's picture was being shown. He had been arrested, tried, and found guilty of the murder of 4 men and the torture of at least 50 more. Peter Moore had a secret life. During the day, he was a respectable local business owner. By night, he stalked the streets looking for victims. He would hang around local gay hotspots, cottages and wooded areas where men would meet for anonymous sex. He would find someone he liked, he would overpower them, and then he would severely beat them. He would then torture his victims in such a sadistic fashion that police were shocked and appalled by the levels of brutality shown. He always attacked his victims in the dark so that he couldn't be identified, and he was able to get away with these crimes for at least 20 years. He was known only as the Man in Black because he wore black leather Nazi gear whilst on the prowl. In 1995, he moved from assault to murder. It is thought that the death of his mother triggered this lust to kill. His first victim was Henry Roberts, who had met Peter Moore through a shared interest in Nazi paraphernalia. Moore turned up at his house one day, accused Henry of being Jewish, then stabbed him 27 times with a combat knife. His next victim was Edward Carthy, who he picked up in a gay bar. He was taken back to Peter's van, tortured, then stabbed to death. His body was buried in the woods. Next was Keith Randalls, a security manager. Randalls was staying in a caravan on a construction site. He answered a knock at the door to find Peter Moore standing there. Moore began stabbing him. Before he died, Keith Randalls begged to know why he was being killed. Peter Moore replied simply, "For fun." His final victim was Tony Davies. Moore was cruising Penzance Beach, a meeting place for gay men. He saw Davies expose himself. Peter Moore got out his van and stabbed him 6 times with his hunting knife. Davies fought back, and although he was killed, blood at the scene was matched to Peter Moore, and this led to his arrest. When questioned, Moore blamed the crimes on a lover of his called Jason, but this turned out to be an alter ego. He was obsessed with the Friday the 13th movies. He had based his murderous persona on Jason Voorhees. I remember my dad being shocked by the news. He recalled how friendly Peter Moore had seemed when they chatted. I don't remember much about him, apart from one strange encounter. One time, we were sat in the viewing gallery watching a movie and I needed the toilet. Now, to get to the toilets in that cinema, you had to go back downstairs, and then down into the unlit main part of the cinema, which was under the balcony and projection room. There was a dark corridor, and this led to the toilets. So I had gone to the bathroom, and as I walked out and back out into that unlit corridor, there was Peter Moore blocking my path. He was just standing there staring at me and not letting me past. I looked back at him, expecting him to say something. Maybe he thought I was causing trouble in the toilet, but he just stared. He was standing right over me, looming, and he had this very chilling expression on his face. For a brief moment I felt this genuine fear come across me. All those stories your parents tell you about strange men that do unspeakable things to small children. Suddenly I felt like I was going to be the victim of something horrible. It was the way he was just staring at me, not moving or saying anything, and that cold, dead expression. At first I was frozen like a rabbit in the headlights. I didn't know what to do, and then suddenly my fight or flight response kicked in. I pushed past him and ran up the corridor. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't even move from where he was standing. I went back and watched the rest of the movie, probably forgetting about the incident as soon as I was back in my seat. I was a young kid with a short attention span. Thinking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't ran when I did. I'm not sure if I was in any real danger. I don't think kids were really his thing. I think he just wanted to scare me and see that look of fear in my eyes. It's as if he set up the whole situation with the unlit corridor leading down to the toilets, just so that he could stand there and frighten unwitting children. He was a true sadist and predator. He's rotting in jail now, and it looks like he'll never get released. I think the cinema was demolished to make houses, otherwise I would have liked to revisit the building for old time's sake. I still visit North Wales quite regularly because my parents live there, and there are many more creepy stories that I can tell about that area. I may make more videos about it in the future. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button for regular creepy content, and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Until next time, goodbye.